Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last and 10th session of 10th. Is it, Tim? 10th or 12th? 12th.
10th. Yeah.
10th.
We could do 12.
All in for that. So for the 10th session of the bootcamp, I can't believe it feels like we just started and we almost reached the end of the bootcamp. I thank one and all for continuing. So you have persisted all the way and you have shown interest to learn. So we hope these sessions are helpful to you and you are able to put it into practice in your day-to-day work. So, and I thank Tim for collaborating with me on this bootcamp and also for coming up with the initiative of doing hands-on SFMC, giving an opportunity for one of you to do the demo. So that will be slow paced and you will be able to navigate each menu item where it is or how to find something on a particular page. So this is something unique that we have done in this bootcamp. So all the sessions, if you missed any of the previous sessions, all the sessions are recorded and it is available on the YouTube channel, Trailblazing Together, or you can also search using @MC Learning Camp. I also wanted to let you know about the upcoming series. That is the Marketing Cloud Personalization series. We have all great speakers included in that series, including Vlad, Chris, Sandesh from Cervelo, Matthias, Ekaterina. So she has done a 3-day interaction studio bootcamp 2 years ago, and now she's back with all the new features and the advanced concepts. So I'm so excited for this. We are just starting it next Tuesday, starting 25th, Tuesday and Thursday. For the next 6 weeks or so, it is planned to be a 15-day series. But let's see how it pans out for the AMPscript as well. We planned it to be a 1-day implementation series, but then we thought it would be more beneficial to have it as a more elaborate and in-depth and including all the demos as well. So here we are, we almost reached the end of the bootcamp. So if you haven't registered for the upcoming Marketing Cloud Personalization session, please find the group link. So you can search on the Phoenix Marketers group. I will also share the link in the chat. So make sure that you register to all the sessions. There is something awesome coming up. So stay tuned. And with that, Tim, I think you can take it over.
Awesome. Thank you, JB. I can't share my screen though for some reason.
Okay, maybe I need to make you the host. Please give me a few.
Sure, no problem.
All set now, Tim.
Thank you. That's perfect. Awesome. Let me pull up my deck. All right. Perfect. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, like JB said, it's been what a fun project has been. Our 10th session in the AMPscript Bootcamp, and like JB said, all on YouTube. Definitely highly recommend going, especially through series 1 through 7. I think there's a lot of great content, and JB really helped craft the orchestration of the entire content. It goes through all of the different functions, not just the key ones, but we basically went through every area. So highly recommend it. So in our last 3 sessions, our last 2 sessions, and this last session itself, we're, like JB said, this is our opportunity for us to dive in and go into go into the build. And we have a special builder today, Malik, who's joined us, has volunteered to continue with the build out of where we left off last week. So Malik, I'll let you introduce yourself and just give us a background of your experience in Marketing Cloud.
Hi all. Yes, so to begin with, I started my career as a Sales Cloud admin, and recently I've moved into Marketing Cloud domain. And yes, I have a good understanding of Marketing Cloud, but not like a good hands-on in terms of AMPscript. So yeah, been following this bootcamp. It's helping me a lot.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for volunteering, and we'll dive in a minute. So, in preparation for this, just like in the last two sessions, we gave Malik access to our sandbox environment, and he confirmed that I was able to go in there. I saw you taking a look at an email. Awesome, Malik. So thanks for doing a little prep work for that. So today we're going to continue where we left off and working on just wrapping up that welcome email personalization. Is one more function we want to do is the proper case function. And then we're going to make a copy of that. We're going to dive into our next use case, which is the loyalty step personalization use case using lookup rows and for loops. And then while we're getting set up for that, when Malik starts sharing, we're just going to go over, briefly what we're working on in market, the different assets in Marketing Cloud, the email design system, the data extensions, and then dive into the build itself. So just to circle back everybody on where we are, we wanted to send out this welcome email, and we've been slowly, each one of these sessions, building up the personalization capability. In the last session, we used the subtract, substring, and index of functions to represent the first name for both of the different scenarios that we had. And now we just need to format it so it looks all clean and tidy because the data is sort of different. So we're going to work through that. And then on our next use case, we're going to replicate this email, and we're going to build a use case where the NTO, Northern Trail Outfitters, wants to send a weekly or a monthly email to these new loyalty members, listing out custom steps that they can take to make the most out of their loyalty program. So we're going to want to display the unique steps for each one of those subscribers. Then we want to order it in chronological order. And then last, if we get to it, we're going to want to display some custom content if one of those steps has the word warranty in there. So just taking a look at how we're going to be going about this approach. Once we do the loyalty part, we're going to be using what we've featured in a couple of sessions ago, which is the lookup rows functionality and creating a for loop to cycle through all of those steps. And then we're going to be using the concat function to populate all that data in the different for loops so that it can be outputted correctly in the content. And then for the display of those content, we're going to use our favorite index of and if then statement to render that content if that pops up as one of the steps. So I think we're going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and then Malik, if you want to try sharing, we'll have you share the Marketing Cloud environment, and we'll open up that welcome email and wrap up the first step, which is going to use the proper case function to clean up the content as it's rendered.
Yes. So can you make me the presenter? Because I'm not able to share the screen.
Okay. JB, I don't know if I can do that or. See if I can do that.
You need anything, Kim?
Oh yes, could you make Malik the presenter so he can share
Sorry.
his screen?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Thank you.
I just have to step away for some urgent thing. I'm back. All set, Malik.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I shared my screen. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. All right, you're in Marketing Cloud. Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, so Malik, we're gonna open up, just like in the last session, we're gonna have two tabs, two browser tabs. So this first tab, thank you. Your first tab, we're gonna go navigate to that email, and I saw you were able, so I'm gonna let you navigate to that email in the email studio, or using Content Builder. Excellent, there's another path there. So we're gonna go to that welcome email. Excellent. And then we'll click right into that. And then in your second browser tab, we're going to navigate to the folder that has all of the data extensions, all the data that we're going to be working with today. So if you go into that, your second browser tab, and yep, and then if we go to Email Studio on the left, yep, and then maybe a tab at the top once it refreshes called Subscribers. So we're going to click on that subscribe, yep, and then down there to Data Extensions. And then we've got a folder set up of a couple of different, so if you open up the little, yep, perfect, that plus sign right there. And then under hands-on, you might have to hit that plus sign one more time. Yep, and then the AMPscript Bootcamp. Okay, so we've got a couple of different data extensions here. We went through a little bit more detail last time, but we'll cover them quickly here. That email send data extension, so if you click into that, this is going to identify, these are the subscribers who we're sending these different emails to. These are our loyalty members. And like we've used in the earlier use case, that name field has a first name. That subscriber key is that unique key that we're identifying all of the, who that subscriber is. So we're going to be in your email in 1 second. When we preview, we'll preview into this email send data extension. And then if you go back to that little blue, right where it says AMPscript Bootcamp on the left, yep, we're going to go back. And there's one more data extension here, which we're going to take a look at these welcome steps. So that last data extension at the bottom. So this is going to be what we're going to use for our steps email. So if you click on the records tab, yep, it'll give you an idea of what we've got here. So we've got, based on each of the customer or subscriber key, we've got a random list of steps. And then there's also a month as well. So when we get to the loyalty email, we're going to want to do is we're going to want to look up in this data extension, based on that subscriber or that customer, we want to output all of those steps that are listed here in this data extension. So this is our second data set that we're going to be using today. So, all right, so we'll leave that as it is now. Let's go back to your email. And what we're going to do is we're going to edit this email. We're going to preview the email itself. Yep. And if you, yep, and then in that, correct, in that blue folder, we're going to select that email send data extension. So it's under, yep. And then I think if you click, yep, yep, perfect. And then let's click on any subscriber, perfect. And then this is where we had left off yesterday or last week, where Barca had gotten us engineered the solution so that, you know, in this example, John is the name in the data extension, so it's coming through. Again, we know that John's not initial capped, but then if you click the arrow right to the left of that blue folder, it'll show a different example. Okay, so here's an example where that name field isn't populated. It's looking up to that universal data extension that we looked at last time. It's pulling in Jane. In this example, Jane's coming through correctly, initial capped. Let's click through another record. See, we noticed John was, so here's Paul, he's all caps. So we're seeing, inconsistencies with the data. So that's what we want to help address using a function to make them, all of these examples, initial case. So Malik, I do notice in one of your browser tabs, you have that AMPscript function reference. Let's click into that. And I think it's down in the string section. We have different options for formatting. So if you scroll down, yeah, to this, I think it's the string section. So it's pretty far down. Yep. So here are our options. We've got lowercase, we've got proper case. A little bit further down is uppercase. But I think for this use case, we'll, for most common use cases for, a greeting, proper case will probably be recommended. So let's click into proper case. Let's take a look at what this function's doing. So it's relatively straightforward, right? It has one field. It's just a proper case function in front of that variable. So it's relatively straightforward. why don't we copy the code there? It could be handy just to use that. So in that where it says %%, yes, if you go back to your tab, where the string proper case tab, there we go. Yeah, let's just copy that code where it says %% equals proper case. And we're going to bring that into our document just so that we have the syntax. Perfect. Let's go into the email itself. And yep, and then yep, we're going to go into content, and then exactly that's the content block we're going to want to edit. Let's go into the HTML editor, just because it's a little bit safer to go through the HTML editor on that. Right up a little bit further up. Yep, you can use the WYSIWYG, but I think it's a little bit more reliable if you use the HTML editor. So you can, after that body text left arrow -- caret, you can hit return a couple of times, and we'll just paste in the code that you had copied so we can take a look at it. Yeah, just hit return a couple, perfect. And then let's take perfect. So, I mean, it looks straightforward, right? All we need to do, instead of, I think what we'll need to do is the v function just outputs the variable as is. That's what's current implementation of it. And I think all we need to do is just swap out the proper case for the v. So if you want to copy just that proper case syntax down there on line 9, yep, and then paste that over the v itself, yep, and then you can delete that proper case, yep. And then let's preview this and see what it returns. Okay, so I think Paul, as you can see on the left, Paul was all caps. Now we see Paul initial capped. So let's just arrow through a couple of records and just sort of see if we're seeing that consistently across the board. Yep, Patty, I think might have been all caps. So we're seeing that consistently, nicely. Yep, Christian was all lowercase. Now it's initial cap. So yeah, that looks good. I think we're done here. Proper case can be a little tricky when you're dealing with some types of names like MC, like McIntyre, or sometimes it might not do the M lowercase and then a capital I or something like that. But I think it's worthwhile exploring in your use case, and it's as simple as that, just swapping out the V for the proper case. Any questions, Malik, on that execution so far?
No. So just one question, like instead of HTML, we could have added it here as well, right? In the free form.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I tend to push people to use the HTML editor only because that WYSIWYG is super helpful, but sometimes it can change things a little bit. So I think it's, if you do it in the HTML editor, you know when you're editing the code that you're just working within the code. So I don't know if others have had that challenge sometimes with the WYSIWYG that's available. But anyways.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you.
Cool. And then I think we have a question. Why does first name not show? Let me just get this. Why does first name not show in the subscriber preview list where the data is coming from? So that's a great question. So the first name variable, if Malik, if you want to go into the content itself, and let's go into that. There's a code snippet right above, yep, right below where you, right there. Perfect. Let's click into there. So to answer the question, that first name variable is being set in this code snippet. So we're setting it initially to the value that's in the send date extension. And then this is what we had done in an earlier session. If that value is empty, then we go look up into another date extension for a backup source in this full name field. And then that first name field gets populated for that variable. And then that variable is being outputted. So it's coming from two different sources, but ultimately when we're outputting it, it's being outputted universally in proper case. And great comment from Rob on the good, Josh. Thank you. A great comment from Rob on the confirming on the WYSIWYG. Cool. That's good to know. Okay, awesome. Great feedback on that. We appreciate everyone's questions and thoughts. That's fantastic. All right, so let's save this email, Malik, and so yep, perfect. And then you can exit out of that email. We're going to create a new email. We're going to do the welcome steps email. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can, on that little arrow all the way over to the right, you can hit duplicate. So if you go, if you click on that email itself, there's a little arrow down all the way over on the right. Yep, and then you can hit duplicate. Right there, perfect. And then we can call this the NTO loyalty email, say. You can see whenever you duplicate an email, Marketing Cloud adds a date stamp, which is kind of handy. Very nice. Awesome. And because you were in the email folder, that's great. We'll leave it right in there. And then if you want to click to the left, save and edit, that's a new feature, I think, relatively in the last year. It allows you to save it and it pulls you right into the email, which is kind of a little bit of time saver there, which is great. Okay, so now for our scenario, we're going to keep the same functionality for the greeting. And now we're going to move on further down into this email. So we want to, we've already got the copy pre-created here where it says, with a few easy steps, you'll be able to save on all your outdoor gear. Now we want to do is we want to output those steps. And again, for every subscriber, they've got different steps depending on how they signed up at Northern Trail Outfitters. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into the code and we're going to need to figure out the logic of how do we, based on the subscriber, how do we find all of those steps that we can output here in the email itself. So if we'll click into that code snippet. And then if you want to widen that little window a little bit, see how that you can, yep, perfect. Let's give that even wider. It'll give us a little bit more room to do a little bit more coding in there. Okay, fantastic. So when we had pre-commented this code to use that, each one, like line 19, we had pre-commented to use the substring and index of. So let's cut that at that line 19, and we're going to add that to line 12 because that's really where that section's doing that. This is sort of moving our commenting of that code up a little bit. Maybe it's not allowing you to. Yeah, it's interesting that it didn't allow you to copy that. You want to try that again? Yeah, there we go. Maybe like Control C or something. And then we want to add that right below, like on line 12. Yep. There you go. Perfect. And then you can delete that. And then we'll bring up step 1 on the loyalty steps. We'll add, remove some of those white spaces in between. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. So lookup rows, that's going to be the first thing that we're going to want to do and do a lookup. So there's in the session that we had earlier on, there's a couple of different options that you have when you're looking up data in another data extension. So what we used to pull in a single variable, which we used in our last set or 2 sessions ago, was lookup, because we only have a single variable that we want to return. In our example, we have 2 fields that we want to return. We want to return the steps themselves, and then we want to return the month that they want to do these steps. So because it's multiple, and there's also multiple steps for each subscriber, we want our options are reduced down to lookup rows or lookup ordered rows. So let's navigate just to get an idea of what the functionality is. Malik, yep, perfect. And this is going to be in the database section. So if you can either scroll on the left, there's the menu on the left, If you scroll up to the database section, so keep scrolling up a little bit. Yeah, a little further. That's the math. Getting closer. Okay, data extensions, and then we're looking up for the lookup rows without the CS. Perfect. Click into there. All right, and so how lookup rows works, it's a function with 3 different variables. The first variable is the data extension that you're doing the lookup for. Where's your data coming from? Your second value is the column in that source data extension that you want to use a variable to look up for. And then the third value is the variable you're looking up to find a record in that data extension. So relatively straightforward as far as just those 3 different values. So Malik, if you want to copy that code right before usage, we're just going to copy that. Excellent. And then we'll go back into our content, and then you can paste that in anywhere there. Okay, perfect. So the first value we want to find is the data extension where these loyalty steps are. Yep, and that is the tab right there. If you want to click in there. So welcome steps is that data extension. So if you want to copy that, you can either copy it. We're going to want to copy over welcome steps. Perfect. Copy that. And then we'll paste it in there. Perfect. And then we'll go back to the next variable is what is the field that helps identify this subscriber so that you can find, all the data associated with it. Exactly. Customer. That is the subscriber key. That's that unique value. Perfect. So we're going to copy that syntax. And we're going to paste that in there. Excellent. And then the last value is that subscriber ID or that subscriber key that we're going to be using that's going to be set in every single one of these every time you do a preview. So now we have got the subscriber key preset in a solution up above. So if you scroll up a little bit, we can show where that subscriber key. So that's on line 11. So that subscriber key is in that send data extension. And like we did in the last session, we are setting it to the attribute value of that subscriber field. So if you want to copy that @subscriber key variable, just with the @sign, yeah. And that's going to be our third value in the lookup rows. Okay, excellent. Okay, and so now we've got the framework of the function for lookup rows. And now what we want to do is build the for loop that we're going to want to lookup rows is going to be returning a variable, which is this number. It's not really a number, it's sort of a value of how many times this subscriber appears in this data extension. And so now what we need to do is to take some code to convert that into a number and then do a for loop that's going to allow us to set all the different variables in there. So a handy way, a guide that we sort of use in concert with the Salesforce data extensions is the AMPscript guide. It can be a little helpful to see different syntaxes of how to do this approach. And I think, in our last session, I said that probably not the best idea to copy code and just drop it in. For our use case for now, we're gonna go to their example of how they use lookup rows and use this for loop. And we're going to modify it. So I'm sort of going to speak out of 2 sides of my mouth on this, but let's keep this tab. And then Malik, if you want to create a brand new tab, yeah. And in Google, let's search for AMPs. Yep, perfect. You already have used it before. Fantastic. So we're going to go into the AMPscript guide, and then in the search function on the upper left, and just keeping a type in lookup rows, and we'll use that as perfect. So let's go to lookup rows. Excellent. All right. And then again, it's the same syntax. The only other addition here that they feature is that you can add additional filters in here. That's why they have that 4A and that 4B. So you can say, I want to look up people with this subscriber key, but I also want to look up people that have like a status of open or a certain status. So that's what that 4A and 4B allows you to do. It's like additional filters, but we won't go through that use case today. But it's the same thing as the Salesforce syntax. If you scroll down a little bit, it'll give you an example of some code that we're going to copy and modify. If you scroll down a little bit further, yeah, in that blue section. Okay. So this has got a lot of great information here. It's got the lookup rows function right there. And then the rest of it, we're just gonna copy over. So let's copy that right below that line you just highlighted. Yep, not that line, the one right below it. We're gonna start with, yep, that row. And you know what? Let's copy let's copy where you were highlighting before. So where you said set at rows, yep, let's copy all the way down to the very bottom where that end if ends. So we're gonna copy, yep, that entire section. Perfect. Let's copy that and let's go back into our code. And yep, we can just paste that in there. Fantastic. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna borrow from this code is you can see how they set up lookup rows. They set it to a variable at rows. So let's copy the set at rows equal from line 31, and we're gonna paste that in front of our lookup rows. So you can copy this, yeah, the set at rows and the equal, or you can type in just, yeah, perfect, yep. And we'll just paste that in right there. Perfect, and then we're gonna do an equals, excellent. So that sets at rows to this variable that is this number. It's not really a number that we can use. So then you can delete that, yep, let's delete line 31. And then you can delete that space too. So what a row count does, it converts that at rows variable to something that we can use. It's a number, and that's what row count will now be. It'll be a number of, so say the subscriber appears in 3 rows in that data extension. Well, that at row count will now be equal to 3. So that's what you need that at row count for first, is what that's for. So you can delete the output. We're going to be outputting in our own special way. So we can delete that line. Okay. And now we've got our if statement. So what this is saying is that we want to only proceed through this process if that row count is greater than 0, right? If there is nobody found in this data extension, that we won't want to continue. All right, and so you can bring up remove space on 32 just to bring that up a little bit closer in our formatting. All right, and then after that if statement, we've got our for loop. This is where our for loop begins. And so what this is doing, this at I variable is saying, I want to do this loop of code, which we're going to go through in a second. I want to do this however many times from 1 to that row count. We're going to go through all of these steps and just cycle through that. So we're going to sort of clean up this code a little bit. We're going to move past the next 4 lines. We're going to come right back to that. So just to help clean things up, Malik, you can delete lines 40 through 44. Those are just formatting, again, outputting some variables that we're not going to need in our use case. You want to keep 46 though, yeah? You can delete that. Okay, and then the bracket %% after that next I, we can delete that. We want to keep the next I, but not that bracket %%. This was an inline example, but we're doing this all in a code snippet, so you can delete that.
Malik,
and then you can
just
delete.
A quick interruption. Can you increase the font size, please? Just a little bit.
Thank you, JB. How's that? Is that a little more readable? Okay.
Is it better?
Is that better, JB? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we don't need an else for this use case. So you can delete 42 and 44, lines 42 and 44 through 44. Yep. And then we're going to want to end this end if, but we don't need the bracket %% from either of those. You can delete that both after, before, and after the end if. Yep. And you can delete the %% on both of those. So you can, right before the end if, those 2% and the ones right after, you can delete those. Excellent. And excellent. Perfect. Okay. So now you can bring up the spacing for that next I. You can remove the line on 30, the space on 39. Yep, and then on the, good. And then we can pull up that end if one line up just to remove one of the spaces between maybe line 40 or 41. Just delete that space. Cool, excellent. Okay, and then just from a slight formatting thing, if on that next I, can you just back it back one space? Perfect. Okay, so just from a formatting standpoint, that next I lines up with that 4I, so that just gives you an idea of what's going to be going on there. So here's our entire bit of code for all this for loop. It starts on 31 with that if statement. It ends at 40 with the end if, right? That's where that if and the end if. And then our for loop starts at that 4 at I and it ends that next at I. So every time it goes down to that next I, it's going to go back up to that 4I, and it's going to keep going up there until that count is equal to the row count, and then it won't keep cycling through. Okay, excellent. So let's break into the code on 35 to 38. So that var statement, you can do is keep the var, but let's remove all those variables because we don't need them. We have our own variables there. This will allow you to set variables in your statement. That at row is going to give you the ability to set the specific row that you're on. So when you're looking up row 1 in your database, it's going to pull the data from row 1. If you're looking at row 2, it's going to pull up the data from row 2. So you can keep that line 36. You can delete that at symbol on 35, Malik, if you want. Okay, fantastic. Okay, and so our use case, we want to output two variables. We want to output the step that the loyalty member wants to take, and we want to output the month that they want to do it in. So Malik, if you go back to that data extension, your second tab, we'll just take a look at the data just so we're familiar with what we've got here. So it's the field of step, and there's the step of what they need to take, and then it's bonus month is the month of the field. Those are the two fields that we want to output each time the record gets, you know, for every time we find a match for that subscriber in this list. So let's go back to our code, and I think it's already pre-set up for two variables, and those variables are first name and email address. So Malik, you can name like that set at first name to, yep, we can name it as step. That would be helpful. And yep, fantastic. And then I think it sounds like you might know, right? You can, yep, fantastic, right? We want to pull from that step column. Excellent. You must have done this before. This is how you set each of those variables. We're creating the variable bonus month, and we're pulling that field from that specific column. Excellent. Nicely done. And now you can, in your var statement, you could list both of those variables. So you could copy that at step and then just add a comma. Yeah. Yeah. Nicely done. Very good. Okay, fantastic. So this should be able, we're now able to capture the two fields every time someone cycles through here. Now, what we need to do, so nice job, Malik, on this. And I think that finishes the lookup rows logic. So the next step is we want to use the concat functionality to continue to, so say subscriber A has 3 rows in this data extension. Each time it goes through this for loop, we need to create a variable that adds the first row and then adds the second row and adds the third row. So with an output, it outputs all of the content for each subscriber. So to do that, we're going to want to do this. We're going to use the concat function within each of the within the for loop. So if you go to line 38, and then let's hit return on line 38. We want to create a new line within that for loop. So if you hit, yep, we'll do it after the bonus month. So if you can create a space, yep, right after it. Fantastic. Okay, so now let's do a set. We're going to set another variable. and let's call this at output, or step output is what we want to output for. Perfect. And now we're going to set that equals, space equals. And now let's go back to your lookups tab, but we'll go to the Salesforce lookups tab. We're gonna look for the concat function, which I think is down in the string function as well. So if you go down a bunch, I think it's in string. There we go, concat. So we want to click on the one right below it. Yep. All right. So concat, yep, very straightforward. It allows you to concatenate multiple different variables and just set it all to one variable. So it's relatively straightforward. It's an example of, there's three here. It's the first value, the second value, the third value. It keeps going on. So yep, let's copy that code. Fantastic. Let's go back into the email content. And then you can paste that. Yep, we'll paste it right there. All right, excellent. So we'll get rid of the percent equals at the beginning, at the end. Yep, perfect. And then at that, where it said equals, percent equals, yeah, we'll just delete that. Perfect. All right, excellent. So to do this concat, the first variable that we want to set in our concat is the @steps output. So what this means is that each time, so we actually want to put the @step output variable. So the variable on line 39 is going to be our first variable. So your @step output, yep, you want to copy that. And it doesn't have to be in quotes. Whenever it's a variable, it can just be without quotes. You can paste that in as your first variable. What that gives us the ability to do is to keep concatenating each row of data that we're outputting. So that's why we need that there. Okay, and then the first thing we're going to do on the first line is the step itself. So I think you're going in the right place, Malik. So if you want to copy the @step variable, that's the next variable that we're going to want to add to this. So yep, we'll copy that variable. Excellent. And then we're going to, that's where, yep, we're going to paste that in as D. Fantastic. Okay, and so right now we've got, we're building our line. This is going to be the step. So this is going to output the step. And then let's go into the data extension. Let's just take a look at what that step looks like, just so we know what to add before and after it. So it's just going to say refer a friend, right? And then the month, if we don't add any spacing or anything after it, it's just going to be refer a friend, and then it's going to be July is going to be right after it. So we need to add some sort of, it could be a colon, it could be a space. So let's go back to that concat statement. And this is where we're going to literally add in HTML or spacing. So in that C variable, why don't we do like a colon? So right where that, yep, in that C, let's do a colon. And then, which are like the 2 dots. So in that space, yep, yep. And then you could just do like a colon, which are the 2 dots. It's just to the right of the L in your, like it's a shift is right above semicolon is a colon on your keyboard. Yep, and then that's out of space. You had it right. We'll do the colon, just I think it's colon will look a little better, not the semicolon. You had it right the first time. Yep, and let's just add 1 space. Perfect. And then after that double quotes, we want to do a comma. Yep, and now we want to add in the bonus month variable. So let's add that bonus month variable. That's the next thing that we want to output. Okay, good. And then we're going to hit, we're going to do a comma. Because we're going to be rendering multiple rows of data for each subscriber, we need to do a return or a BR or HTML function. So if you do your double quotes, And then we're going to do a less than sign. The other, yep. And then we're going to type in lowercase br. Yep. And then a greater than sign. And then we're going to do double quotes. Okay. So that should work. That's going to output the step. It's going to output the month. It's going to create a carriage return so that the next time it comes through, it's going to add another row, another row, another row. So let's hit save. Done some great work here, Malik. And then let's go back to the code and let's copy that output steps output variable. We're just going to output it. So let's copy that steps output variable. Perfect. All right. And then let's go back into the email content itself. And then we're going to go down to the paragraph that says thank you with a few easy steps. So we'll click right into that, the thank you and welcome to, yep, we'll click right into there. And let's go into the HTML editor. So we're going to go in there and do, okay, great. And then at the end of that line where it says outdoor gear period, yep, after the period itself, we're going to let that period stay in that sentence. So if you just arrow over one, yep. And let's do that same open caret BR. We're going to want to create a space there. So we're going to do that. Yep, BR, yep. And let's just do that twice, just so we're going to create two spaces before we output our variable. Yep, and we'll just repeat that again one more time. Perfect. And then let's paste in our variable right after that BR, that second BR. Perfect. And now to output this, we're going to use the v function. So inline, we're going to want to use at the yep, we're going to use it right before the variable. Yep. We're going to do a % equals. Yep. And then the lowercase. Yep. And then open paren. Perfect. We're going to close the paren. Yep. We're going to hit equals %. All right. Let's hit done. Let's try previewing it. Let's see what we get. We're going to preview it against that date extension. Okay, so for Chris, it looks like he's got two different steps: refer a friend, and the month is June, and then sign up for loyalty program is the second step. Let's try another record, see what we get. This person has three different steps. And luckily, it's all coming out in order, but this is how it's, using that subscriber key, looking up in that date extension, and it's rendering multiple rows of data. If you want to arrow back over, let's try another one. Yep, that one's got 4 steps. So excellent. Nicely done, Malik. That really well done. We could add some more formatting in here, and then, if we have a little bit more time, we could dive into doing some custom content. One of the things that we could do here, you can see in this example how they're not in order: October, June, July, September. So if you're interested in use the same concept, but use lookup ordered rows, and it'll give you the ability to take your data and it will order it in a certain order, which can be helpful in this use case. If we had time, we would have gotten dug into that. But fantastic job, Malik. That was really complex. Especially with that lookup rows, and especially the for loops and the if statement. Any questions, any thoughts on your end, Malik, on that execution?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. This is really something new. This is the first time I'm working on something like this. So yeah, feeling really excited.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, if you go back into that content, let's just take a look again at what it was doing, because these, the foundation. So if you scroll up just right above the image, we'll go into that code block that you had created. Yeah, and if you scroll down to that for loop, the code that you had built, which is a little bit further down. Yeah, fantastic. So again, like we talked about in the last session, although I sort of went against my what I said last time. You can, in this example, we copied code from the AMPscript guide. They can be a very helpful resource, but I think the way we broke it down and try to understand it, I think it's helpful for you to break it down and make it useful for your use case and really understand what each step of the process is doing. That at rows variable, it's that variable. I mean, you can output that variable. It's kind of fun if you want to check it out. Like output every step along the way. And this is a great way to troubleshoot things. You can output at rows, you can output out row count, and you could see all that when you're troubleshooting. So you can be like, okay, for this subscriber, I'm seeing the at rows, which will be some gobbledygook number. And then the at row count will be, okay, it's 4. This person should have 4 rows. I think 4 rows. But my point, it's just good to understand each step of the process when you're doing something like a for loop, because I'm sure JB and others have scenarios. These for loops, you can have for loops inside of for loops, inside of for loops, and doing all of this complexity and all of this stuff, looking up different things. Like, when you look up in this one data extension and you find something, go look up another data extension. You have lots of use cases like that. But it's based, all that complexity is based on the simple framework of, what that lookup rows returns, how you convert it to a row count, making sure that there's a positive value to do that, and then setting, based on that row variable, setting each of those variables. And then there's so much fun in concat. I mean, as you can see, we could have done this inline, and that's what the AMPscript guide had, was an inline example. But like we said in the last couple of sessions, if you can find a way to get your code in these code snippet blocks, and you can use functions like concat, which is taking variables and HTML, where you can render, a couple of rows of data, you can render entire emails using the concat function. There's a lot of fun in there. So anyways, sorry to babble on about that. But any other thoughts, Malik, on this build?
No, not really. Just wanted to understand like how you have added this image in the free form.
How we add the image?
Yes.
Well, let's go into the HTML. It's sort of a secret designed block, but it's right there in the HTML. And it's an example of those things that, another example of how, understanding HTML and how to, how to make it work within the email design system. But we could probably go through that in another example, another session of how to render certain content blocks like this, where you're able to select an image and use it within the WYSIWYG. But yeah, happy to go through that another time.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, that wraps up the session. That was fantastic. Malik, great job on that. It felt like, it was a great result, great work done. And I'll pass it back to JB for a wrap up.
That's a great session, Tim, and great job, Malik, on the demo part. Thank you both. So we'll get the recording, we'll upload it as soon as possible. Thank you everyone once again for joining us. So Tim, you want to share about the upcoming sessions on hands-on SFMC? I know we need to get clarity on when and what, but something's in the plan. So Tim might share that news with you all.
Yeah, so we're working with JB to find a time that works for everybody to continue with these sessions. Like JB said, we're going to be doing the Marketing Cloud Personalization Bootcamp starting soon, but we're going to be reaching out to the channel. So please join the Slack channel for the Marketing Cloud Learning Camps. We'll be reaching out there to set up a regular occurring session where we're going to continue to invite new builders, just like we did today. But not only building an AMPscript, we're going to do queries, we're going to do journeys, we're going to do cloud pages, maybe tail off of some of the work that we've done in the Marketing Cloud Personalization, maybe build out some use cases there, try to do it on a regular basis. Again, same format, bring in someone to work right in the system, have different people instruct as well. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. Will be coming very soon.
Awesome. Thanks much, Tim. There's already some requests for some sessions like these. These are really helpful. And there are some requests for the templates within SFMC. We can focus on those areas. If anyone, any of you have any requests on the specific topics, please let us know, Tim or myself. So we will consider and try to include that. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you again in the next session. Take care.
Thank you.